his gaze swept across the meeting room and landed on me for 3 extra seconds. Too long for a professional. That was when everything started. My name is Parker Wells. I'm 26, and I've been working in Horizon Technology's marketing department for almost 2 years. I've lived in Seattle since I graduated, far away from the small Texas town where I grew up and left as soon as I could. Here I can be myself without hiding anything from anyone. Being openly gay was never an issue at the company, at least not until my new boss arrived. Caleb Donovan, 45, was the picture of American corporate professionalism. Tall, with broad shoulders, impeccably neat dark hair, and suits that looked like they were made just for him. From day one, I noticed how his blue-gray eyes seemed to study me with a curiosity that went way beyond work. But I brushed those thoughts aside. He was married, my boss, and by everyone's account, extremely conservative. If you've ever felt that inexplicable tension when two people are attracted to each other, even when they shouldn't be, hit like, because that feeling only grows when you work side by side every day. Our office occupies 3 floors in a glass skyscraper in downtown Seattle. I spend my days between brainstorming sessions, tight deadlines, and the usual buzz of a competitive corporate environment. The view from my desk shows the city skyline always shrouded in a soft mist, and the aroma of premium coffee from the 15th floor cafe fills the air coming from the vents. My routine was simple: get there at 8:30, check emails, join the morning team meeting, and dive into the day's projects. Sometimes I'd have lunch in the break room with some colleagues, and other times I'd go out for a little fresh air. At 6, I'd catch the train home to my apartment in Capitol Hill, where the LGBTQ+ community is strong and welcoming. Caleb always arrived at 7:45, looking as flawless as if he had just stepped out of an executive fashion magazine. He strolled down the corridor greeting everyone by name, an ability that impressed us all considering he had only been with the company for 2 months. His glass office allowed him to see the whole team, and I often caught him silently eyeing my desk with a pensive look. One Thursday, after everyone had already left, Caleb called me into his office. My heart raced immediately. Being alone was rare, and when it happened, there was a strange charged energy in the air. "Parker, I need your help on a special project," he said as he closed the glass door behind me. "It's confidential for now." He explained a new campaign aimed at a young, diverse audience, and how he needed my unique perspective. The questions started off professional but soon became personal. What was it like being openly gay in corporate environments? He asked, twirling a pen between his fingers. "My wife, Samantha, and I have been talking a lot about inclusion lately," I answered carefully, keeping my tone professional, but I noticed how he leaned in when I spoke, how his eyes rarely left mine. "Maybe we could continue this conversation over dinner. For the project," he quickly added, "there are a few ideas I want to explore further." That seemingly innocent invitation marked the beginning of something that would change our lives. Work dinners became more frequent. We started at the Paramount Hotel restaurant, then moved to more discreet, intimate spots. Of course, we talked about marketing, but also about our lives. Caleb shared stories about his 15-year marriage with Samantha, about how they met in college and built what seemed like a perfect life in a Seattle suburb. On one of those nights, as we strolled along the waterfront after dinner, he showed me photos on his phone of his house, his dog, and some woodworking projects he did on weekends. Our hands brushed accidentally while I was holding his phone, and he didn't pull away. "You're different from anyone I've ever worked with, Parker," he said, gazing toward the horizon. "There's something in you that makes me want to learn more." At the office, our interactions remained strictly professional, but the lingering looks never stopped. There were also little gestures: a cup of coffee left on my desk just the way I liked it, a sticky note with an inside joke about a difficult client, a discreet compliment during meetings. During a company retreat in the Cascade Mountains, Caleb and I ended up sharing a cabin after one reservation was lost. Sitting on the porch at night, staring at the stars with whiskey in hand, he finally opened up. "I kissed someone who wasn't my wife last week," he admitted, his voice low and shaking. "It was the first time in 15 years, and the worst part is, it wasn't a woman." My heart froze. I wasn't sure if he was testing me, confessing something, or simply looking for advice. I kept a neutral expression, as if we were discussing the weather. "How did it make you feel?" I asked, avoiding his gaze. "Confused. Scared. Alive." He downed his whiskey in one go. "I thought it was just curiosity, something that would pass, but I can't stop thinking about it." That night, lying in my bed down the hall, I could hear his restless steps. The same footsteps I'd heard in the office when he paced around, deep in thought. I knew I was crossing a dangerous line. He was my boss. He was married. and he was clearly conflicted. And yet, I couldn't help feeling that growing hope in my chest. A hope mixed with guilt, anxiety, and a desire that was becoming harder to ignore every day. 3 weeks had passed since our conversation in the mountains. At the office, Caleb maintained a formal distance, but he often found an excuse to pull me aside to discuss projects that could have easily been handled over email. The tension between us grew with each day, like a rope pulled taut. On Friday night, I received a message from him at 10. "I'm at the company apartment downtown. We need to finish the presentation for Monday. Can you come?" I knew it was just an excuse. The presentation was practically done. Still, 20 minutes later I was hailing a taxi, telling myself it was just work, and I'd keep everything strictly professional. The corporate apartment was on the 30th floor of a fancy building overlooking Puget Sound. When Caleb opened the door, I noticed he had swapped his suit for jeans and a gray t-shirt that showed off his physique more than any work outfit ever could. His feet were bare on the dark wooden floor. "I brought wine," he said, leading me inside. "Hope you like red." The laptop open on the dining table helped maintain the pretense that we were there to work, though the documents scattered around made it look like a stage scene from a play we were both pretending to be in. We sat on the sofa while Caleb poured me a generous glass. The lighting was soft, and the city lights sparkled through the huge windows. We talked about work for about 10 minutes until silence settled between us. "Parker," he began, twirling the glass with his fingers. "I've been thinking a lot since our chat in the mountains." I looked at him, waiting. His face showed visible conflict, brows furrowed and jaw tense. "Samantha and we've been having problems for years. I thought it was just routine, work stress, the struggles of adulthood." He placed the glass on the coffee table. "But since you came to the company, I realized there might be something deeper." Suddenly, the apartment felt smaller, the air heavier. I placed my glass next to his. "Caleb, I don't want to be the reason your marriage has problems." "You're not the reason," he replied as he moved a few inches closer. "You're the spark, the person who made me see something I'd been denying my whole life." The entire city seemed to fall silent, as if the world had paused for this moment. When Caleb raised his hand and gently rested it on my cheek, I closed my eyes. His touch was hesitant and gentle, as if I were made of glass. "May I?" he whispered, so close I could feel the wine-scented warmth of his breath. I nodded, almost imperceptibly, and his lips met mine with unexpected tenderness. The kiss started shy, exploratory, a silent question. When I deepened the kiss in response, I felt his body relax and surrender to the moment. His hands moved from signing documents in meetings to running over my hair, my neck, my shoulders, as if he were memorizing every curve of me. He pulled me closer, and I noticed the tremble in his arms, the vulnerability in his embrace. For someone who always seemed in control, Caleb now appeared completely surrendered, rediscovering a part of himself that had been locked away. "I never thought," he mumbled against my lips, "that I could feel this. It's like something asleep suddenly woke up." The kiss evolved into something more intense, more urgent. Caleb led me down the hall toward the bedroom, our hesitant footsteps interspersed with stops against the wall as our mouths met again, as though we couldn't bear even a second's distance. The room was lit only by the bluish glow of the city through the windows. Caleb stopped at the edge of the bed, suddenly vulnerable. "I've never with a man," he confessed, his hands trembling slightly as he cradled my face. "Maybe we can take it slow," I replied while undoing the first few buttons of his shirt. "Or we can stop if you want." "I don't want to stop." His voice came out rough but determined. "I want to feel everything." I slipped his shirt off with care, revealing his chest and strong shoulders, dotted with a few freckles I'd never imagined would be hidden under those impeccable suits. His skin shivered under my touch, like the surface of a lake stirred by a gentle breeze. When we finally lay down on the cool sheets, it was as if we were explorers mapping out unknown territories. Every sigh, every shiver, every moment of discovery built a new language between us. His fingers, once busy signing reports with authority, now traced tentative, tender paths over my body. "Show me the way," he whispered, his eyes searching mine in the dim light. So I did. I showed him how our bodies could fit together, how pleasure could be found in gentle, intense gestures. The sounds of the city outside faded away, replaced by the rhythm of our breathing, broken words, and murmured promises. For Caleb, the experience felt like a diver exploring the depths of an ocean for the first time, the initial pressure giving way to the sensation of floating in a completely new world. For me, it was as if I were guiding someone through my favorite place, watching him see it in a new wonder. When we finally became one, it felt as if something deeper than just the physical had connected us. Caleb clung to me like I was his anchor in a vast, unknown sea, his body quickly learning to dance in sync with mine. Time seemed to stretch and compress at once, minutes turning into hours, seconds expanding into eternities. As we neared the peak, I saw in his eyes a mix of vulnerability and certainty I had never seen before. It was like behind that controlled executive, a completely new man was emerging, truly breathing for the first time. "Parker," he moaned, gripping the sheets. "It's like I'm finally finding a part of me that had been missing." When the climax took over, it was like a wave breaking after a long journey across the ocean. Powerful, inevitable, and perfect in its nature. Caleb trembled in my arms, his whole body giving in to sensations he had never experienced before. Afterwards, we lay side by side, our breathing gradually calming, our fingers intertwined on the rumpled sheets. The sweat on our skin cooled as reality began to creep back in. "I thought it was just curiosity," murmured Caleb as he turned to look at me. "Something I'd experience once and then move on. But this was like finding a missing piece of myself I'd been searching for all my life." His words echoed in the quiet room, heavy with truth and the weight of what they meant. We both knew that what we had shared could potentially destroy careers, a marriage, even friendships. And yet, in that moment, it all felt so perfectly right. Sunrise found us still tangled in the sheets, whispering about everything and nothing. Like kids exploring a new world, we shared stories, memories, and dreams we'd never voiced to anyone. The golden morning light painted patterns on Caleb's skin as he lazily traced circles on my arm. "My first crush was my best friend in 7th grade, he confessed, staring at the ceiling. Then came Jason Mercer, and I told myself it was just admiration. After that, there was the college football quarterback, and again, I convinced myself it was just because I wanted to be like him." I traced his jawline with my fingers. "And Samantha?" His face clouded with guilt. "Samantha is wonderful, really, she is. We met in college, she was smart, beautiful, everything I should have wanted. And I love her in my own way. But I always felt something was missing, like an hunger I could never quite satisfy. For years I blamed work, stress, anything but the truth." "And what is the truth, Caleb?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer. "That I've spent half my life living a lie," he said, turning to look at me, his eyes glistening with restrained emotion. "A lie I first told myself and then everyone around me. That morning he took me to a small restaurant a few blocks away for breakfast, where no one would recognize us. Over eggs Benedict and strong coffee, we talked about what would happen next. The reality of our situation loomed over us like an approaching storm. "I can't just end a 15-year marriage with one phone call," he said, rubbing his face. "And there's work. Technically, I am your direct superior. We could keep everything a secret," I suggested, though even to my ears the words sounded hollow. Caleb shook his head. "I can't live like this anymore, Parker. I spent decades hiding who I truly am. If we're going to do this," he said, as he briefly held my hand on the table, "I want to do it right. No lies, no hiding." On Monday, the office felt different. Madison from HR gave me a curious look when I arrived. "Good weekend?" she asked. "Chill," I replied, feeling my face warm up. Nothing special, but there was something different in the air. The energy between Caleb and me was almost tangible whenever we crossed paths. Our team meetings became tests of self-control, each shared glance laden with the memory of what we'd experienced. For 2 weeks we kept our promise not to meet outside of work. Caleb said he needed time to think, to figure out how to move forward. Those 14 days felt like the longest of my life. Then on a typical rainy Thursday in Seattle, I got a message from him. "I talked with Samantha last night. I told her everything. Can you come to the apartment later?" When I arrived, Caleb was sitting on the same sofa where everything had begun, a glass of whiskey in hand and red eyes like he had been crying. "How did she take it?" I asked as I sat beside him without touching him. "Better than I deserved," he replied, finishing his drink. "She said that somehow she always knew something was off, that I was never really present, even when I was physically here." He put the glass down. "She even asked if I loved you." My heart raced. "And what did you say?" "The truth. That I never imagined I could feel what I feel when I'm with you." Finally, he looked at me, eyes shining with unshed tears. "That I'm in love with you in a way I never thought possible." At that moment, I understood the weight of his confession. A man who had built his identity his whole life on what society expected was now dismantling it brick by brick to rebuild himself in an honest way. "She's keeping the house in Bellevue," he continued. We agreed to an amicable separation. I'm planning to rent this apartment for now. And work? I asked, as practical reality crept into our conversation. I set up a meeting with HR tomorrow. I'm asking for a transfer to another department, so there won't be any conflicts of interest. He held my hands. I don't know what's going to happen, Parker. I don't know if I'm ready for all the changes this will bring. But I know I can't go back to who I was before I met you. I pulled him close, feeling the tremor in his body as I embraced him. It was the tremor of someone who had jumped off a cliff, not yet sure whether he'd fall into the ocean or learn how to fly. I'm here, I whispered against his hair, for as long as you need me. That night, we made love again, but in a different way. The rush of discovery had slowed, replaced by the certainty of two men who had chosen a difficult path together. Every touch, every kiss carried the weight of that choice and the freedom it brought. Afterward, lying in the dark, Caleb reflected, I always wondered why I never felt truly fulfilled, even after achieving everything society said was supposed to make me happy. Now I see I was trying to fill a space inside me with the wrong things. I watched his profile in the dim city light. And now I'm beginning to discover who I really am. He turned to me. And I want to take that journey with you if you're willing. 3 months had passed since Caleb revealed our relationship at the company. As expected, rumors spread like wildfire. Suddenly, I was no longer just Parker from marketing, but that guy who's sleeping with the ex-boss. A week after the official announcement, Madison from HR cornered me in the elevator. So, you and Donovan, huh? I always suspected he was playing for both sides. Her tone was friendly, but I could feel the weight of office gossip behind her words. Not exactly, I replied, uncomfortable. He isn't playing for both sides. He simply took a long time to understand who he really is. She nodded as if she understood completely, but I realized that for many at the company, we were just the scandal of the month, something to gossip about at Friday happy hours. Caleb, on his side, faced his own challenges. Transferred to the strategic development department, he now answered to executives he once stood equal to. His former subordinates treated him with a mix of curiosity and discomfort, as if his recently embraced sexuality was somehow contagious. One particularly rough night, I found him sitting on the balcony of his apartment, staring at the city lights with a glass of whiskey in hand. Rick canceled our golf meeting today, he said without turning. 3rd time in a row. We used to play together every month for the last 5 years. I sat beside him, letting the silence speak for a few minutes. Do you regret it? I finally asked, the question I'd been avoiding for months. Caleb turned to me, his eyes reflecting Seattle's lights. Regret us? Never. He took a sip of whiskey. But I underestimated how much people would change around me. Some colleagues I considered friends for years can barely meet my gaze now. And Samantha? We rarely talked about her, although I knew she and Caleb still communicated regularly to sort out the divorce details. She's doing better than I expected. She started dating a yoga teacher. He smiled slightly. She said she finally understands why our marriage was never physically passionate. The pieces of the puzzle fit for her too. That night, while watching a movie on the sofa, Caleb turned to me with a serious look. I got an offer today, from the San Francisco branch. My heart sank. San Francisco was nearly 1,000 kilometers away. Are you going to accept it? It's a promotion, he explained. I'd lead the entire West Coast division. The kind of opportunity that doesn't come around twice. I tried to keep my voice steady. I understand. It's a big opportunity. I want you to come with me, he said, taking my hands. I know it's a lot to ask. You have your life here, your friends, your apartment. But we could start over there, away from prying eyes and whispers. In San Francisco, we'd just be another couple. The proposal hung between us, full of possibilities and uncertainties. Moving with him would mean leaving behind the life I'd built in Seattle, putting everything on the line for a relationship that was only a few months old. It was both scary and exciting. You don't need to answer now, he continued, noticing my hesitation. I have a month to decide. Just think about it. In the following weeks, the idea of San Francisco consumed my thoughts. I visited the city alone on a weekend, wandering its steep hills and watching the bay shrouded in a morning fog. Could I see myself living there? Building a new life with Caleb? One afternoon, while I was mulling it over at a cafe in North Beach, I got a text from Madison. The office is buzzing. Apparently, Caleb turned down the transfer to SF. He told the board that his place is in Seattle. My heart raced. I called him immediately. Is that true? I asked as soon as he answered. You turned down San Francisco? Where are you? He ignored my question. We need to talk in person. 2 hours later, we met at Pike Place Market amid tourists and fish vendors. Caleb looked nervous, running his fingers through his hair repeatedly. I turned down the offer, he confirmed. I realized I was running away. Moving to San Francisco would be easier, starting from scratch away from critical eyes. But that's not the answer. Then what is? I asked, confused. The answer is to choose what truly matters. He held my hands. And you matter more to me than any title or what people say. I don't want you to leave your life here. I want to build something together. Right here, where our story began. At that moment, I knew this wasn't goodbye. It was a decision to stay. A conscious choice to face our challenges together instead of running away from them. Besides, he added with a half smile, I rented a boat for next weekend. I thought we could sail on the Sound, just the two of us. I've always wanted to show you the islands. It was an invitation for more than just a boat ride. It was an invitation to keep writing our story, one chapter at a time. The summer sun was setting over Elliott Bay as our small sailboat glided smoothly over the water. 6 months had passed since Caleb decided to stay in Seattle, and so much had changed. Caleb's divorce was finalized in a surprisingly friendly way. Samantha came to dinner with us once, bringing along her new boyfriend, the yoga teacher. It was awkward at first, but it ended with genuine laughter and the feeling that sometimes the universe puts people exactly where they're supposed to be. At work, the buzz about our relationship finally died down. Caleb thrived in his new position, bringing an authenticity to his work that had been missing before. As for me, I was promoted to digital campaign manager, a promotion that came from my hard work, not my personal connections, which I made sure everyone knew. What are you thinking about? Caleb asked, adjusting the sails as the wind shifted. The setting sun highlighted the strands of gray that were starting to show at his temples. How much things have changed, I replied, as I accepted the beer he offered. A year ago, you were just my intimidating, straight, married boss, and I was just another employee trying to survive Monday meetings. He laughed as he sat next to me. And now here we are, on a boat, living something that sounds like a cheesy romantic movie. Do you regret anything? I asked, echoing the same question from months ago, but now with a new perspective. Caleb looked toward the horizon, thoughtful. I regret waiting so long. 45 years before finally living my truth. He took a sip of beer. But no, I don't regret anything that got us here. The next morning, I woke in the small cabin of the boat, only to find Caleb's side empty. I stepped out on deck and found him sitting at the bow, gazing at an island bathed in the golden light of dawn. Good morning, I murmured, as I handed him a mug of coffee. Did you sleep all right? Not really, he admitted, taking the coffee. I was thinking about a lot of things. I sat next to him, enjoying the cool morning breeze. Like what? He set his mug aside and turned to me. About how unpredictable life is. A year ago, I lived in a big house with a wife I loved, but not in the way she deserved. I had a prestigious job, friends who now barely speak to me, and an identity built on what others expected of me. And now I live in a smaller apartment with a man who taught me what it truly means to love someone. I have a different job, some new and real friends, and I finally know who I am. He smiled. And you know what? I've never been this happy. In that moment, with the sun rising over the Sound and the scent of coffee and the sea in the air, I realized that our story wasn't about a traditional happily ever after. It was about an ongoing journey, about learning and growing together, about choosing authenticity even when it's hard. I think real love isn't like what they show in movies, Caleb said, as if reading my mind. It's not easy or convenient. Sometimes it's confusing. Sometimes it hurts. Sometimes it means giving up things we thought we wanted so we can discover what we really need. He took my hand, his eyes reflecting the blue of the morning sky. But it's always worth it. We sailed back to Seattle that afternoon, the city skyline slowly reappearing from the mist. Watching Caleb expertly steer the boat, I thought about all the people out there living lives that aren't truly their own, trapped by expectations and conventions. If you're watching this and you relate to any part of our story, whether you feel like you're living a life that isn't truly yours, or you found the courage to be who you really are, just know you're not alone. Hit like, subscribe, and share your own journey in the comments. Because the most important stories are those that remind us it's never too late to find our truth. After all, as Caleb and I discovered, true love isn't about who you're supposed to love by society's rules. It's about finding that person who makes you feel like you've finally come home, no matter how long it took to get there.